Dr. Elias Thorne stepped off the shuttle and onto the strange, glowing surface of the newly discovered planet, Galira 9. The ground beneath him shimmered faintly with a soft blue light as though it were breathing. Crimson clouds stretched across the sky, swirling slowly in patterns that seemed almost alive. The air was breathable but carried a faint metallic taste that made Elias wrinkle his nose. Even from a distance he could see the crystalline forests rising like towers, reflecting the red and gold sunlight in dazzling patterns. Elias adjusted the strap of his backpack and looked around at the small group of scientists preparing the camp. Each one of them was focused on their tasks, collecting samples, checking instruments, or recording data. But Elias felt a strange pull that made him want to explore beyond the boundaries of the campsite. Something about this planet whispered to him, a quiet voice calling him to venture further. "Elias, don't wander too far," called Dr. Marin, his team leader. Her voice was firm but tinged with concern. "We need to establish the base first. Safety comes before curiosity." Elias smiled politely. "Of course, Doctor," he replied, though his eyes already scanned the horizon. A narrow canyon caught his attention, cutting through the forest in jagged lines. Light bounced off the crystalline walls, creating patterns that moved like liquid fire. Without thinking, he walked toward it, each step taking him further from the camp and closer to the unknown. The canyon grew narrower as he descended, and the sound of his own footsteps echoed strangely, mingling with soft hums that seemed to rise from the walls themselves. Strange plants with translucent leaves glimmered along the sides, releasing faint pulses of light when touched. Elias reached out and let his fingers brush against one of them, marveling at how fragile yet strong it seemed. He felt a thrill of discovery run through him. Suddenly, a movement at the far end of the canyon froze him in place. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall and graceful, but unlike anything he had ever seen. Its skin shimmered in colors that his mind struggled to name, shifting between deep violet and silvery blue. Its eyes were large and reflective like polished gemstones, and they held a depth that seemed almost human in their curiosity. The being, Elias realized with a mix of awe and caution, was the ruler of this planet, an intelligent life form of immense presence. The figure spoke, not in sound, but directly into his mind. "Human, why are you here?" The voice was soft yet powerful, echoing in Elias's thoughts like a melody he could not forget. I'm here to learn," Elias replied aloud, though he wasn't sure if it needed to be spoken. His voice trembled slightly, both from excitement and fear. "I want to understand your world, your people, and you." The being stepped closer, and Elias noticed details that made his heart race with a strange mixture of fear and fascination. Its body was elongated and elegant, with features that were, by human standards, unusual. Too many limbs, skin that reflected light in irregular patterns, and a face that did not conform to any human sense of beauty. Yet there was something undeniably captivating about it. Something beyond appearance. "I am hideous," the being thought. And Elias felt the sadness behind the words as if it were his own. "Why do you look at me and not turn away? Why do you not recoil?" Elias swallowed. He knew this was a moment that could change everything. He took a slow step forward. "I don't see hideousness," he said gently. "I see life. I see intelligence, and I see something beautiful that goes beyond what the eye can measure." For a long moment, the being, whom he would later learn was called the Alien Queen, paused. Its eyes, large and reflective, studied him in silence. Then with a tilt of its head, it spoke again. "You speak with words that humans rarely mean. Why?" Elias shrugged lightly, trying to appear calm even as his heart raced. "Because some things are more important than appearances," he said simply. "The way someone or something makes you feel, the strength in their mind, the courage in their heart, that is what I call beauty." The queen seemed to consider this. Slowly it moved to a nearby rock formation and lowered itself, folding its unusual limbs carefully. Its presence filled the canyon, yet there was no threat. Only curiosity and something else, something that resembled hope. Elias took a cautious step closer, noticing the subtle movements of its shimmering skin, the way light played across its form like sunlight on water. "You are unlike any human I have met," the queen finally said. There was a pause and then a hint of something softer, almost shy. "Do you truly see me?" "I do," Elias said with absolute honesty. "I see you as you are. Not as the world might call you. You are Extraordinary. The queen stayed silent for a long while, as if tasting his words and weighing their truth. Then, in a movement that seemed almost like a bow, it acknowledged him. Perhaps there is hope for understanding between our kinds, it thought, and Elias felt a warmth spread through him at the unspoken connection. As the sun dipped lower in the alien sky, casting the canyon in shades of deep red and gold, Elias realized he had stepped into a world that was both beautiful and dangerous, frightening and magical. He had met a being who challenged every notion of life and beauty he had ever held. And yet, in this encounter, he felt an unexpected sense of peace. The queen finally spoke one last thought before retreating into the shadows. Come. Tomorrow, learn more. If you dare. Elias nodded, though the queen could not see him. He knew that he would return. The canyon, the glowing plants, and the alien presence had left an imprint on his mind that would not fade. He walked back toward the camp, each step heavy with the weight of wonder and the thrill of the unknown. That night, as he recorded his observations and tried to make sense of what he had seen, Elias felt a strange certainty. This planet, this being, would change the way humans thought about life and beauty forever, and somehow he knew that his journey with the alien queen had only just begun. The next morning, Elias woke before dawn. The sky above the camp of Galira 9 was a deep violet, and streaks of gold and crimson light slowly spread across the horizon. He packed his equipment lightly, his notebook, some sample containers, and a small camera, but he didn't carry his usual scientific instruments. Today he wasn't coming as a scientist. Today he was coming as a visitor. He approached the canyon carefully, each step echoing softly on the glowing ground. The air was crisp, filled with the faint scent of minerals and the subtle hum of energy that seemed to rise from the crystal walls. Elias paused at the entrance, remembering the moment from the previous day. The queen's words, the way her gaze had held his so completely. His heart raced, not with fear, but with curiosity and wonder. Then he saw her. The alien queen was standing in the middle of the canyon, her form illuminated by the soft glow of the crystals. She was taller than any human, her limbs graceful yet unfamiliar. Her skin shifted between colors, violet, silver, and blue, catching the early light in a way that made her seem almost unreal. Her eyes, large and reflective, were fixed on him as if she had been expecting him. You came. Her voice echoed in his mind. Calm and curious, I did. Elias replied aloud, though he knew she would hear it mentally. I wanted to understand more. About you, your world, and everything you are. The queen tilted her head, a motion so delicate it almost seemed like a dance. You speak words that are unusual for humans. Most would see me and turn away or only study me for what I can provide. You do not. I think there is more to life than what we can see with our eyes, Elias said gently. You are not just your form. You are your mind, your thoughts, your presence. That is what makes someone beautiful. For a moment the queen was silent. Then she spoke again, her tone soft, almost hesitant. You mean this? Even though I am not like you? Even though my appearance is strange? Yes, Elias said firmly. Your appearance does not define your worth. Your courage, your intelligence, your heart, that is what matters. The queen stepped closer, her movements flowing like liquid. She studied him for a long moment, her eyes reflecting the light of the canyon walls. I have never met a human who sees me like this. Always in fear or curiosity, never acceptance. Why? Elias smiled faintly, feeling a strange warmth at her words. I don't know if humans always can, he admitted. But I think we sometimes forget that life is not just shapes and colors. It's the connections we make, the kindness we show, the courage we find inside ourselves. The queen considered this. She lowered herself slightly, folding her limbs with careful precision. Perhaps I have been wrong about my kind, about yours, about the way we judge others. Elias stepped a little closer, careful not to seem threatening. We all make mistakes, he said softly. Even you, even me. But understanding comes when we look beyond what is expected, when we listen and care. The queen's eyes glimmered, and Elias could sense her curiosity turning into something deeper, a willingness to trust, to see differently. You were not afraid of me? She asked. I am not, he said. I am fascinated. You are extraordinary, and I want to learn from you. For the first time, the queen moved with a gentleness that seemed almost human, She extended a hand, or what resembled a hand, with long, delicate fingers tipped with subtle glowing pads. Elias looked at it, then at her eyes, and slowly reached out. When their touch met, a current of understanding seemed to flow between them. It was as if their thoughts could meet without words, as if a bridge had formed between two very different worlds. Your touch. It is not like others. It is comforting, the queen thought. And Elias felt the vibration of her words in his mind. And your presence is not frightening, he replied. It is inspiring. You are unlike anything I have ever known. They stood together in silence for a long while, sharing a quiet moment in the glowing canyon. Elias felt the weight of the alien world around him, the vastness of it, the mystery, the beauty that defied description. He realized that meeting the queen was not just about science or discovery. It was about connection, about understanding life in a way that went beyond experiments or measurements. Finally, the queen spoke again, her voice thoughtful. You speak of beauty and courage, but how can you see these in me? I have ruled for centuries, yet I feel alone. My appearance, my form, it has always made others fear or avoid me. Elias looked at her, meeting her gaze steadily. Because true beauty is not in fear or avoidance. It is in presence, in the ability to think, to care, to act with honesty. You are beautiful because you are you, not because of what anyone else expects, but because of your essence. And essence is more important than skin or shape. The queen's glowing form shifted slightly, almost like a sigh. You make me feel ain't seen, not just looked at, truly seen. That is all I ever want, Elias said softly, to see and to understand. For hours they shared stories. Elias spoke of Earth, of oceans, mountains, sunsets, and the laughter of people he loved. The queen shared her experiences of ruling her people, the solitude of leadership, and the responsibilities she carried for her world. Despite the differences, there was a thread that connected them: curiosity, empathy, and the willingness to understand what was unfamiliar. By the time the sun dipped lower in Galaira 9's sky, casting long shadows across the canyon, Elias knew something extraordinary had happened. He had crossed a boundary, not just of space, but of understanding. He had seen beyond what most humans would fear, and in return the queen had begun to see herself in a new light. Before leaving, the queen said something Elias would never forget. You may return, if you wish to continue seeing what others cannot. I will, he said, and I hope to learn more, from you and from this world. The queen inclined her head in acknowledgement. Then, come, learn, understand. As Elias walked back toward the camp, he felt a sense of purpose he had never known. The canyon had shown him that understanding was more powerful than fear, and connection was more valuable than appearance. He knew the journey with the alien queen was just beginning, but already he had discovered a truth he could carry back to humanity: that beauty and courage exist in many forms, and the most important forms are often unseen. That night, as he recorded his observations, Elias realized something else. He was no longer just a scientist studying an alien world. He had become a participant in a story far larger than himself, one of empathy, discovery, and the quiet, powerful magic of truly seeing another being. The days passed slowly on Galaira 9, each one painting the alien world in new colors and sounds. Elias returned to the canyon each morning, guided by a sense of curiosity that had grown into something deeper. The alien queen was always there, waiting, her presence calm yet powerful, like the slow rhythm of the planet itself. At first, their conversations were simple. Elias asked questions about the crystalline forests, the glowing rivers, and the strange humming plants that seemed to respond to their thoughts. The queen would answer carefully, describing her world not just with facts, but with feelings, the way light danced across the surfaces, the sounds that echoed differently in every canyon, the gentle sway of her people's dwellings during the energy storms. You have lived here alone for so long, Elias observed one day, picking up a small glowing leaf and letting it pulse between his fingers. Doesn't it feel lonely? The queen's eyes shimmered as she regarded him. Lonely, yes, but also necessary. Leadership comes with responsibility. My people depend on me to be steady, to be strong. Solitude has been my companion for centuries. Elias nodded slowly. I think solitude can teach us many things, but sometimes It can make us forget the value of connection. Even someone as strong as you can benefit from seeing the world through another's eyes. The Queen paused, letting his words sink in. You speak wisely, human. You are not afraid of my form, my power, or my solitude. You see me. Truly, that is rare. As the days continued, their bond deepened. Elias shared stories of Earth, the way children laughed in the rain, the way mountains could take your breath away, the quiet beauty of a sunset over the ocean. The Queen listened intently, her mind painting images of these strange and wonderful experiences. She began to ask questions of her own about human life, about friendship, and about the strange rituals of trust and love that Elias described. On your world, she asked one day, do you not judge others by appearance? By what they look like? By how they behave? Sometimes, Elias admitted. Humans can be afraid of things that are different. But the best humans, the ones who truly matter, they look beyond the surface. They try to understand, to connect. They try to see the essence. The Queen considered this, and for the first time a faint smile spread across her shimmering face. Essence, yes. Perhaps I have judged my own essence too harshly. Perhaps I have forgotten to see myself through anything but my reflection. Elias tilted his head, curious. Reflection, you mean? How you look to others? Yes, she replied. I have always been told I am strange, frightening, different. And so I believed it. I never allowed myself to feel beautiful until you came. Elias felt a warmth in his chest. He had not intended to change her, yet somehow his simple words had begun to open something inside the Queen. You are beautiful, he said softly. Not because of your skin or shape, but because of who you are. Because of your mind, your courage, your heart. The Queen lowered her gaze, a faint shimmer of light flowing over her skin. You see what others cannot. That is a gift. Their mornings became filled with shared experiences. Elias would touch the glowing plants, observe their patterns and explain their reactions, while the Queen would guide him to places humans could barely imagine, hollows that resonated with energy, caves lined with crystals that sang when wind passed through them, rivers that glowed brighter when life moved along their banks. She watched him with curiosity, sometimes amusement, sometimes a gentle fondness. One day, Elias found a small creature by the riverbank, its body like liquid glass, moving with graceful ripples. He knelt, studying it carefully, and the Queen hovered nearby. Be gentle, she warned. It is fragile. Elias nodded, slowly extending his hand. The creature sensed his presence and allowed him to touch it. Its body rippled with soft colors, almost like a smile. Elias looked up at the Queen, amazed. Your world, it's full of wonder and life, is everywhere delicate but strong. Yes, the Queen replied, her tone thoughtful. You see it. You do not take it for granted. That is rare. As the days turned into weeks, the Queen began to show Elias the customs of her people, how they communicated without sound through light and thought, how they celebrated the energy storms, dancing and weaving their forms in patterns that echoed the planet's rhythm. Elias marveled at the grace and intelligence of her species, realizing that understanding did not require words but attention, patience, and respect. You have a strange way of connecting, the Queen said one evening, her form glowing softly in the canyon's light. You do not command, you do not fear. You simply are present. That is powerful, Elias smiled. I believe presence is the most powerful thing we can offer. To be there for someone, to listen, to share in their world. That is what I am trying to do with you. The Queen shimmered, a faint pulse of light spreading across her form. You to make me question things I have believed for centuries. About myself, about others, about beauty and worth. You should question, Elias said gently. Questioning is how we grow, how we learn, how we see the truth beyond what we have been told. For the first time, the Queen allowed herself to laugh, a sound that was more felt than heard, a vibration that resonated through the canyon. Elias laughed too, feeling the warmth of the moment. It was strange and wonderful, a bond forming that neither of them had expected. That night, Elias returned to the camp with a notebook full of observations, not just scientific, but personal. He wrote about the canyon, the glowing plants, the strange creatures, and most importantly, the alien Queen. He wrote about her courage, her wisdom, and the way she had begun to trust him. He realized that this encounter was changing him as much as it was changing her. In the quiet of his tent, he reflected on the weeks they had spent together. The queen had shown him beauty beyond imagination, and he had shown her that value could be measured not by appearance, but by essence. And in that exchange, something rare and profound had begun, a bond that bridged two worlds, two forms of life, two hearts willing to understand one another. Elias knew, as he drifted to sleep, that this was only the beginning. The canyon, the queen and her world held more secrets, more wonders, and more challenges. And he would face them not just as a scientist, but as a friend, a witness, and someone who truly saw. The morning air on Galira 9 was heavy with a strange tension. Elias awoke to a low, humming vibration that seemed to pass through the ground beneath the camp. The usual soft glow of the canyon walls pulsed rapidly, casting moving shadows across the crystalline forest. He rubbed his eyes and checked his instruments. The readings were alarming. Energy levels in the planet's core were fluctuating wildly. Elias knew what this could mean. Galira 9 was stable in most areas, but sudden shifts in its energy could trigger seismic activity or worse, collapse parts of the canyon where the alien queen and her people lived. He quickly gathered the other scientists. "We need to move carefully," he said, his voice steady but urgent. "The planet is unstable. If we're not careful, we could cause or experience serious damage." Dr. Marin nodded, her expression tense. "We'll follow your lead, Elias, but we need to understand what's happening before we act." Elias grabbed his notebook and rushed toward the canyon, following the path he had traveled so many times before. The queen was already there, her shimmering form tense and alert. The normally calm light of her body flickered with worry. "Elias, you sense it too," she communicated silently. "Yes," he replied. "The energy in the planet's core is unstable. We need to act carefully." The queen's eyes reflected the pulsing light of the canyon. "This is rare, dangerous. My people may be at risk." Elias took a deep breath. "Then we help. We find a way to stabilize the area and guide anyone in danger to safety." The first tremor hit suddenly, shaking the ground beneath them. Crystals rattled against each other and small fissures appeared in the canyon walls. Elias stumbled but caught himself. "Stay calm," he shouted. "Move to the wider areas where the ground is more stable." The queen extended her limbs, sending a ripple of energy across the canyon that helped steady the terrain. "Follow me, quickly," she thought, and Elias felt the guidance clearly, like a gentle pull. They navigated the canyon carefully, reaching a plateau where the ground seemed solid. From here, Elias could see the smaller settlements of the queen's people, glowing softly in the distance. Some were beginning to tremble as the vibrations intensified. He knew they had little time. "We must warn them," he communicated to the queen, though she already knew. "Yes," she thought back. "I will lead them. You help guide them to safety." Elias moved quickly, using the paths he had observed in his visits. The queen communicated with her people through pulses of light, guiding them calmly but firmly. Despite the fear in their eyes, they followed her lead. Elias was amazed at the coordination, their minds connected, their trust absolute. Suddenly, a larger tremor struck. A section of the canyon wall began to crack, sending a shower of crystal shards down toward them. Elias dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the falling debris. The queen extended her limbs, creating a protective barrier that absorbed much of the impact. "Stay close," she projected, and Elias obeyed, moving within the safety of her energy shield. Once the immediate danger passed, Elias glanced around. The queen's people were safe, but the energy in the planet continued to pulse unpredictably. "We need a solution," he said, thinking quickly. "There must be a way to redirect the energy, to stabilize the core temporarily." The queen's eyes flickered as she processed the information. "The core, yes, but it is dangerous. Only I can reach the central nodes." "You won't be alone," Elias said. "I'll help however I can." The queen's form shimmered, and Elias could sense her hesitation. "Human, this is perilous. My energy is vast, but if I fail..." Elias stepped closer, his hand reaching out not for control but for support. "I believe in you," he said. "I trust you. We can face this together." Her form pulsed brighter at his words. "Together, yes. Then we act." They moved toward the center of the canyon, where a series of glowing nodes rose from the ground, connected by veins of energy. The queen extended her limbs toward them, sending pulses of her own energy to stabilize the nodes. Elias observed carefully, taking notes but also using his hands to gently support the energy flows with small devices he had prepared. For a tense hour, they worked in synchronization. Tremors shook the canyon intermittently, and shards of crystal fell around them, but the Queen's energy, combined with Elias's careful adjustments, began to calm the instability. Almost stable, she communicated, her form flickering with effort. We must hold it, Elias nodded. We can do this. Focus on the nodes. I'll monitor the edges. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the energy pulses slowed and the ground beneath them steadied. The canyon became quiet, the air still, as if the planet itself were sighing in relief. The Queen lowered her limbs, exhausted but triumphant. Elias approached her carefully, placing a hand near hers, not touching but close enough to share the quiet relief. You risked much, she thought. Why did you help so freely? Because it was the right thing to do, Elias replied simply. Not because I had to, not because I would gain anything, but because helping is what matters. The Queen regarded him, her large eyes reflecting a mix of admiration and something deeper, gratitude, perhaps even trust. You are remarkable, human. I see now why I did not fear you before. You are courageous in ways that even I struggle to be. Elias smiled faintly. And you are courageous in ways that no human could imagine. You led your people, controlled your energy, and kept everyone safe. That is true courage. For the first time, the Queen allowed herself a small, soft glow, a sign of relief and acknowledgement. Perhaps beauty lies not in appearance but in action, in heart, in courage, she thought. Yes, Elias agreed, feeling a profound sense of connection. Exactly. As they rested on the plateau, the Queen looked out over her people. Her energy shimmered softly, a calm and steady light that reassured everyone around her. Elias observed the scene with awe, realizing that he had witnessed something extraordinary. Not just the power of the planet, but the power of trust, understanding, and cooperation across worlds. You taught me, the Queen finally thought. You helped me see what I have always overlooked in myself, perhaps. I'm not as alone as I thought. Elias nodded, smiling. You are never truly alone. Connection is possible, if we are willing to see it, to nurture it. As the sun dipped below Galira 9's horizon, casting long, colorful shadows across the canyon, Elias felt a quiet sense of triumph. The crisis had tested both of them, the Queen's leadership, her power, and his resolve, but they had faced it together. And in doing so, they had strengthened a bond that went beyond fear, beyond appearances and beyond worlds. For the first time, the alien Queen allowed herself to relax fully, her form glowing softly and steadily, a silent acknowledgement of trust and respect. Elias sat beside her, watching the stars emerge in the alien sky, knowing that this was only the beginning of a journey that would change both of them forever. The days following the crisis were calm, almost serene. The energy of Galira 9 had returned to its natural rhythm, the canyon glowing softly under the crimson and gold sky. Elias and the alien Queen spent long hours together, not just observing the planet but reflecting on what had happened. The Queen's people moved freely now, their trust in her and in Elias clear in every gesture. Elias stood at the edge of a crystalline cliff, watching the light ripple across the canyon floor. He felt a quiet sense of accomplishment, but also a gentle sadness. Their time together, though meaningful, was limited. Earth called him back, and his mission would soon end. He looked at the Queen, who was observing him with her large, reflective eyes. You have changed much since you arrived, human, she communicated. And yet, why do you look at me as if you see more than what I am? Elias smiled softly. Because I do. You are not just what anyone else sees. You are strong, wise, and beautiful. Not because of your form, but because of who you are. And that is something I will never forget. The Queen's shimmering form pulsed with a soft light. For centuries I have been told I am hideous, that I am different, that I am feared, and yet you have shown me a truth I never knew. Sometimes it takes someone from outside your world to show you what you've always carried inside. Elias said, I didn't do anything special. I just saw you, and you allowed me to see you. The Queen's eyes glimmered. I allowed. Because I trusted. Because I saw your heart. And because perhaps I was ready to see my own worth. For a long moment they stood in silence, letting the canyon's glow reflect their shared experience. Elias felt a deep respect for the queen, not just for her power but for her courage, her wisdom, and her willingness to trust. He realized that their bond had become something rare and extraordinary, a connection that transcended worlds, appearances, and even language. That evening, as the two watched the twin moons rise over Galira 9, Elias knew it was time to prepare for his departure. The shuttle would arrive in a few hours, and with it, his return to Earth. The queen approached him, her glowing form steady and calm, yet he sensed the faintest pulse of sadness beneath her surface. "You will leave soon," she communicated. "And yet, something will remain between us. Something I cannot name, yet feel." "Yes," Elias agreed, his voice quiet but sincere. "What we've shared will stay with me always, and I hope it will stay with you as well." The queen extended her limbs in a gesture of acknowledgement, a soft pulse of light spreading through the canyon like a gentle embrace. "I will remember. I see now that beauty is not what I feared. It is courage. It is kindness. It is heart." Elias stepped closer, letting his hand hover near hers without touching. "And your heart is remarkable," he said. "It has guided your people, saved lives, and shown me a world I never could have imagined. That is beauty in its truest form." For the first time, the queen allowed herself a small, contented glow, a silent acknowledgement of understanding and acceptance. "You see me. And because you do, I see myself." The shuttle arrived, its engines humming softly in the alien air. Elias walked toward it slowly, glancing back at the queen one last time. She stood at the edge of the canyon, her light steady, powerful and serene. She had changed, subtly, profoundly, since the day he had first arrived. The insecurity she had carried for centuries had softened, replaced by a quiet confidence that radiated from her very being. Before stepping into the shuttle, Elias spoke one final thought, not aloud but clearly into her mind. "You are more than anyone could ever say. You are remarkable, and I will never forget you." The queen's light shimmered brighter, a response that carried a depth of emotion he could feel across the canyon. "And you, human, you have shown me the gift of seeing beyond the surface. I will never forget you either." The shuttle's ramp closed behind him, and Elias felt the vibration of its engines beneath his feet. As it lifted into the crimson sky, he pressed his forehead gently against the glass, watching the canyon, the glowing forests, and the queen's luminous form. He realized that what they had shared was not simply friendship or curiosity. It was understanding. It was a bond that reached across worlds, between two beings who had dared to see the truth in each other. As the shuttle rose higher, the queen's form became a distant glow, but her presence lingered in his mind and heart. He thought of the courage she had shown, the lessons she had taught him, and the beauty that exists in every being willing to be true to themselves. Back on Earth, Elias returned to his life as a scientist, but he carried Galira 9 with him, not just in his notebook but in the way he saw the world. He wrote about the planet, its energy, and its life forms, but he also wrote about something deeper: trust, courage, and the ability to see beyond appearances. His colleagues marveled at his discoveries, but they did not fully understand the lessons he had learned from the alien queen. He often thought of her, imagining her standing atop the canyon cliffs, her light steady and calm. "She is not hideous," he thought quietly to himself. "She is extraordinary." And somewhere across the stars, the queen looked out over her people in the canyon, her thoughts reaching across the distance to Elias. "He saw me, truly, and because he did, I see myself. I'm not hideous, I am more than I knew." The story of their meeting, the crises they faced together, and the bond they shared became a quiet legend in both their worlds. Elias would carry the memory as a reminder that true understanding is rare, and that beauty exists not in appearances but in the courage, kindness, and heart of every being. As the twin moons of Galira 9 rose again, casting soft light across the glowing canyon, the queen smiled faintly, knowing that she had been seen, and that in being seen she had discovered herself. And Elias, far across the galaxy, smiled too, remembering a planet, a canyon, and an extraordinary being who had changed his world forever. The story ended not with finality, but with the quiet assurance that understanding, connection, and acceptance could bridge even the greatest distances, between worlds, between beings, and between hearts.